All right, BIC episode number 66. And on this episode, we're actually going to discuss an Eric topic. Yes, I'm as surprised as you are. But then we have a topic that actually segues off of it very well. And then at the very end, we'll talk about another player collecting related topic because we do like to have a fair bit of those. That and more on this episode of BIC Podcast. He's always watching all the time. So that, for the people watching the video version of it, is a Stairmasters card from 1999. Looks like Donruss, QB Club. I'll get the exact name, brand, and everything, but you've got the staring eyes of Brett Favre. So that is actually part of I want to say 120-ish card ComC mail day that I actually got here. I was actually trying to sort through. I still got to sort through the rest of the stuff, so I didn't have the chance to record the video today, but that'll be forthcoming on the channel. That'll be a fun one because it touches on a lot of the player collections, and I've got quite the smorgasbord of different items, including several Brett Favres, some chosen Rosen PCs. Very exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff. And possibly
an expensive order.
Let me tell you. Oh, man, let me tell you. And possibly a hamburger cart. I am serious. It's a fact. But that'll be forthcoming on the channel afterwards. And I will say, real quick, just a thing off the top. One of the things that I wanted to do this past week, I didn't get a chance to do it, but I'll quickly touch on it now. I was actually having a little bit of fun thinking about a little bit about what I want to do in the channel videos forthcoming. So I'll give a couple of updates now. I'll do it in this segment here just for a second. And that is that I still want to do some standalone videos. A lot of the stuff that I've wanted to talk about has actually been covered either by the podcast or the live stream. So that's kind of put a damper on doing additional videos because I already said the thing I wanted to say anyway. So what's the point of saying it again in a standalone video? But there are a few standalone videos I do want to do. I do still have the stack of the Tough Stuffs, Canadian Sports Card Collector, and some of those other magazines that I actually want to go back to. I want to go back to doing that series. The only problem is the Canadian Sports Card Collector actually does, in fact, have rather lengthy articles. So I got to sit down and read through them to find some highlights to share with you. So that one, if any of you are familiar with that magazine, back in the day, they did, in fact, take some pride in having pretty decent articles, actually. And I'm sure there's some interesting stuff there that actually be pretty fun to go over with you. But it's not the Beckett style with a lot more of the pretty pictures. There are some pictures in it, but it does focus a little bit more on that. And then the Tough Stuff is one that I definitely want to have some fun with. But I got to sit down and make sure I go through the magazine fully, properly, so that I can do the summary for you as I go through the magazine that way. But those will be coming down.
I was just hearing you explain there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying the Canadian
Sports
collector thing had really good articles, right?
They did.
But Beckett had more photography to it.
It did for a while. For a while, yeah. It became like that after a while, especially.
Are you saying Dr. Beckett was like the Hugh Hefner of the sports card magazine world?
I was secretly hoping that you would go down this direction because it does continue down your Beckett slander. Not even like the Beckett slander that Eric engages in. He's talking with the person, not even the company. Eric, we've got all the hashtag potential slander covered.
Am I wrong? Like the one has the picture. I mean, I always heard that Hefner's magazine had some good articles in it, but
I'm just saying I don't know too many.
I couldn't read at that age.
I don't know too many people who actually claim that they read Beckett for the articles, Eric.
That's true. That's fair. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was hearing you properly. So you may continue.
Me being a strange person, I would read that thing cover to cover every single month when it came in, man.
And that was perfect for you because there wasn't that much to read. There were no words in it. There were words in it.
I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah, I'd read. I'll be honest with you. Just in all seriousness, in the Beckett back issues that I've done so far, the most interesting thing in the magazines for me were the letters to the editor.
Yep.
In all honesty, the letters to the editor were far and away the more interesting items inside of it. I read the articles, and a lot of them were like, it's fine. Like again, I'm not stating there were no articles in it, but I'm stating I read the articles, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
Did the letter to the editor start off with, "Dear Dr. Beckett, I never thought this would ever happen to me"?
Listen, Eric, I cannot deny that possibility is in play. It's always in play.
Okay.
Always in play. Just saying.
The collector written ones, those stories, and then the other cool thing was the they used to have like the artwork in there sometimes where the readers would do the drawings and stuff. Those were pretty cool too.
Yeah. I like this. Look, if I'm talking about anything in a old Beckett magazine that I like the Super Collector article, so to speak, the Super Collector of the Month, whatever. I liked it because, especially when the person had an eclectic collection or they had some nice pictures of the collection and then an explanation of whatever, gave a rundown and breakdown. So I'm not stating there's nothing in there, but I'm saying that a lot of times in the Canadian Sports Card Collector, you would have people that would be like, okay, let me tell you about the set and let me go into depth a little bit on this set. And of course, the infamous Burrell had written some articles for Yield back in the day. Now, I'm going to go look through and see. Maybe there's a couple of his old articles in there. But I do remember that they did a good job. There were some good authors who participated in it, and it showed because they were using the old newspaper stock. So they weren't relying on the glossy photos per se. So they kind of had to give you the content had better make up for the fact that you're not getting the beautiful glossy photographs. With the Beckett, you're getting the nicer photography and the cards and the images or whatever you want. But in the other one, it's like, yeah, if you're using old newspaper stock, it's not going to look that great as far as the pictures. So you got to have something else in there to draw people and to give them the attraction as far as that magazine is concerned. Some stuff.
In all seriousness, since we're only, I just noticed the ticker's only at like 6:45 at the moment. I'm just having fun. I actually have met Dr. Beckett, and he's a wonderful guy. It's just all in fun and games. I just want to clarify before I piss anybody off. I don't want to do that. So just
making people angry? Is that even a thing?
A little bit of fun. A little bit of
Hot
fun.
takes.
Little bit of fun.
Hot takes.
I think we're gonna have to kick him off the show. You ever had that happen to you, Brandon?
But not because of the audience.
Yeah, it's true. I think though, like the problem is Eric. I kind of am into the slanderousness. So at that point, it's like I might just have to promote this man. Like that it might be the opposite. It's like go on. So anyway, what is not slanderous is AMG Collectibles and AMGcollectibles.ca. Not at all. Quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. Friends of the channel, friends of the podcast and the live stream, and purveyors of quality card shop related content, especially on the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel, because generally speaking, you're going to get a nice breakdown of some cards that came in the shop. And of course, we're getting some insights from the ground floor on the happenings as the Conor Bedard Mania has gone forward. So I think this next episode, I think we'll be talking a little bit about the trade night, most recent one. I think it'll be a little bit more Pokemon heavy, most likely. That'd be my guess, but we'll see what kind of stories they come back with. So we'll have some fun with that. And then we'll also see what came in the shop. I did see from some of the images I got early that it does look like we're going to get a nice mix, which is always cool. It's not always just hockey, certainly not. We do get some baseball, we get some basketball, we get some football, and some Pokemon as well. So you do get a nice mix and match of different items. So it's kind of fun to see what came in the shop. So I want to thank AMG Collectibles and the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel for their support of this podcast. Now, let's move on here to the first topic that I want to talk about. Well, actually, one more thing before I finish. One other thing I was going to say. So I talked about the magazine thing, but the other thing that I want to make sure that I include, and we're about a month out. So the Spring Expo is coming. So within the next couple of weeks, I will have a video where I do want to talk about kind of some stuff I'm planning, because this time I think my agenda is going to be a little bit different. There's certain elements of it that are going to be the same as always, but I'm going to put together a nice little budget together, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what my plan is, how I want to allocate that in order to take care of some things, maybe pick up some items that I may end up flipping, pick up some stuff for the collection. I'm going to try to come in with a little bit more of a direct game plan as opposed to kind of a mix and match. Usually I just kind of go with the flow and see what happens. But this time around, I want to go with a little bit of a game plan. And if I am able to structure something together, I'll actually have a video on that in addition to the stuff leading up to the expo.
Okay, so betting has been a current sports topic, Eric. What kind of friendly bet over under on how many AEW boxes Carlos buys at the expo?
Yes, the answer is yes.
He has a strategy in place. I bet it has some AEW boxes pertaining to it.
I see.
Don't forget that. Don't fail to take into consideration the possibility that I could get those boxes before the show.
Yeah, I see the number 17. I don't know why.
17. That's an odd number, but
that's a very odd number. Yeah. You know the half cases are 10, right? Just letting you know.
Maybe somebody cracked 3 for the full case and you buy them out.
I guess so. It's funny you mentioned that because it's not. I'm not saying yes. I'm not saying no. But it's a real possibility. I may get some boxes before that show happens. I might not wait to the show. So I'm just bear that in mind in your calculations. I may have already taken care of that before the show even started. So that wouldn't count, technically. Just throwing it. I just want to make sure you have all the factors and all the
Make
variables.
17 look better.
Just bear that in mind. Just want to throw that out there. Anyway, we'll come back around to that. So like I said, that'll be some stuff potentially on the channel. I do still want to make some standalone videos. What's funny, and I'll talk about it more maybe in a subsequent episode. What's funny is that there's no lack of ideas and things that I want to talk about on the channel, but a lot of times I end up talking to, like I said, either in the podcast or in the live stream. I end up pretty much talking about those things anyway. So a separate standalone video becomes a little redundant, unless it's an excerpt or something. But maybe we'll include a couple more of those down the road. But for now, I think we've managed enough content on here, so we're making hay with that. So Eric, let's talk about one of the things that we chatted on beforehand, and you wanted to discuss a little bit about the difference between kind of the pack pulled sticker autographs and kind of the collector interest level and kind of the values they put on more of a sticker pack pulled versus kind of an in-person. Do you want to kind of lay the groundwork on that, and we'll discuss it a little bit?
Yeah, I've noticed recently at the shop, people are coming in and asking, do you have any autograph cards of, fill in the blank? And we go and we show them that we have cards that have been in person autographed. Many of them in our shop. We can show people pictures of the athlete signing the card while they were in our shop, video of them doing it, and it's on card. A lot of times they have inscriptions, Hall of Fame, how many goals, Rookie of the Year, whatever, how many wins if they're baseball player, pitchers, all these different things. And I've had a lot of customers say, no, thanks. I want one that's pack pulled. And I guess if you are only thinking about flipping, that is much easier to move, obviously, because it's automatically, everyone agrees it's real, and there's no question because it's come from the card companies. But if you're a collector, it boggles my mind why you would rather have a pack pulled card with a sticker auto on it versus a hard signed card with proof, with including inscription. We complain these last several years that the card companies are only giving us sticker autos, and in the products that actually have hard signed, we're paying an arm and a leg, right? Hoping to get something. You can go on eBay or go into a shop and get hard signed autos for much lower cost than a pack pulled sticker auto. And I don't particularly get that. Many of the autos I have been, in-person autos. Now, I understand that there's an issue with, authentication, but even if you have sent it in to one of the major 3 or 4 authenticators, they still don't have the same value, it seems, or does people's desire. And that makes no sense. So let me give you a quick example. My favorite example is right here in front of me. Here's a fantastic, absolutely wonderful Bobby Orr pack pulled upper deck, and it is hard signed, so it isn't sticker autoed, so I can't use this as the argument. But people would rather have this as a rule than say this. Okay, there's my thumbs up again. Same autograph, same blue ink. Okay, this one has a very rare Hall of Fame 79 inscription. None of the ones you're going to find in the upper deck products have that. to my knowledge anyway. But people would still rather have the Upper Deck version, and currently with sticker autos, than have something like that on an older card. And I can't wrap my head or my wallet around that.
So let me take a stab at this, and then Brandon, I want to get your take on it as well. But first, let me throw out a couple of initial thoughts that we can kind of chew on a little bit here. First one is that one factor you got to go in. So when you're talking about people would rather have, are you talking about like secondary market value as one of the indicators? Like obviously they'd be willing to pay more for one versus the other. I assume that's one of the key points you're making. Okay. So taking that into account, I think one factor you got to play into it is, so for example, we'll use the Bobby Orr card that you were showing a moment ago as an example. I know for a fact that that autograph set was very popular when it came out. There were folks in it that were interested in that card, but they were also interested in the rest of the cards in the set. So there's already a demand built in for people that are building the set. And hockey collectors in particular love autograph sets, memorabilia sets. You offer them the opportunity to build a set. There's somebody out there who's like, challenge accepted. And that's always a big fact. So right there, that's going to take some of the demand and it immediately put some demand in there beyond the folks that are interested in a Bobby Orr card, beyond the folks that are interested in a Bobby Orr autograph. And there is a certain comfort in knowing that it's already been certified. It doesn't require that additional step. Upper Deck is already led. And back then, more so than now, Upper Deck would also have it signed in front of a representative. So it was different than when they would send off the cards to somebody. A lot of times in the earlier days, they would actually bring the cards to the athlete, whoever it was, get them to sign the cards, and then usher them away. So you had a good chain of custody. You knew that you had it signed by the person, and then they walked it away, and that was your part of your certification. That we talked about how JSA, and we'll talk more about that here after. We'll segue out of this topic after and touch on that in a moment. But when you go to a show, using one of the examples you talk about, if you go to a show, you can have like a JSA, put a sticker on it, especially if their representative is standing right there watching the autograph happen. You can walk it right over, and for a fee, you can get that certification in there, which is to say they witnessed the autograph happen. They've witnessed it signed by the person that was supposed to be signed by, and there you go. So that's, firsthand eyewitness testimony that this has been autographed. Your point about the authentication, I think, is valid, but I do think also we have to factor in that there is also the collectors that like the sets, that want to collect them for collecting's sake. So that's just the aesthetic and the fact that it's part of a set and those elements of it, that adds some attraction to the card above and beyond the example that you gave with the Bobby Orr. The inscription, to your point, makes it rarer. That's true. But Bobby Orr's still alive. So if maybe I might not be able to get the inscription, but I could probably grab that same 1970. I don't know if it's O-Pee or Tops, which one you have, but one of them. But regardless,
this is the Tops one.
Okay, so for example, I could get another copy of the 1970 Tops, and maybe I can get him to autograph the Hall of Fame inscription or not, maybe not, but I can still get him to autograph another 1970 Tops for me. So I can manufacture it myself. Now, there's another example I'll give about the whole idea of putting it onto a card that we can play with in a second. But just high level, I think the fact that it's a set and the fact that there are collectors for the set as well, I think that factors into where the pricing and the attraction is for some folks. But Brandon, please take it away. Your thoughts?
So I kind of agree with Eric that, and to each their own, but on a personal preference, my first choice would be to get the autograph myself from the player. After that, depending on who the player is, then it would depend on which kind of, area route I would be going. But I think as far as to answer the question first, I think you're seeing it more in the current market space or the current audience in sports cards, because there is this perceived notion that the pack pulled card is rarer, which means then it's more important. Many of the autos have serial numbers on them, and people have to have the serial number to tell them that something is rare. And so with that whole thing, it's like, well, there's only 25 of these. No matter if there's 20 different colors of them with all different, there's only 25 of these. Whereas on a in-person card or whatever, as Carlos said, Bobby Orr is a player that's still alive, could still sign them. So there could be 40 of those, just throwing a number out there. But I see this even outside of autographs, because there is some, like, I'll use Topps' website for example. There's some on-demand sets, or like Montgomery Club sets, those type of things that are limited issued sets, but because they're able to be purchased rather than the difficulty or perceived difficulty in pulling them from a pack, people look at the pack pulled as being more valuable because it is thought and believed to be either more rare or more difficult to hit or find or whatever. It boils kind of back down to what you're talking. Are you in this to something that you're looking forward to flipping at some point, selling or whatever? Or are you looking for a nice piece for your collection? I've shown my Willie Mays comic and stuff back there. When I was hunting for a Willie Mays auto, I didn't even go for a card. I was looking for something outside of cards because I knew there was a lot of fakes in there. And that piece is freaking amazing. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I actually pulled a couple out that I've picked up, because like this one, for example, Emmitt Smith, this is his 90 score, the supplemental, his best rookie card, signed, authenticated, the card and autos graded. And I got this at Chantilly cheaper than it would have been for me to go back and pay Emmett to sign a piece for me, because this, even though it's already encapsulated and everything, the value of it is less. And that's an 8 of his score supplemental. It's a nice card. But I totally agree with you. And that's the best way I can describe it, is the perception of it being more difficult to obtain out of the pack is why people value it more.
Now, I'll throw one other wrinkle in here, something else again to think about and to chew on. There is another aspect of it as well, because when you go and have a card signed yourself, so we'll use the example that you talked about. When you go and have a card signed yourself, it's almost like painting a house. So here's the analogy I'll use. It's almost like painting a house, but picking some exotic color. There is an audience that is still going to be interested in it. It's not a deal breaker. If somebody really wants the house, it's not going to hurt, necessarily, but they're going to look at it and go like, oh my God, I hate that color. So it's one of those things where like, there's going to be people that are going to be attracted more because they really like what you did. There's going to be people that are kind of neutral on it. They're not going to worry about it. And there's going to be people that are going to be attracted less just because of what it is. So for example, we'll use Eric's example there with the card, or even Brandon's example with the Emmitt Smith. Let's say I want an Emmitt Smith autograph, but I think the score supplemental is ugly. That's just automatically going to make it less attractive to me. Whereas it could be the same issue with that Bobby Orr card that Eric showed earlier, the one that was from Upper Deck. But if I like the aesthetic of that card, well, then that's going to make it attractive to me. But it's part of already a set. And, if you like the aesthetic, you like the aesthetic. If you don't, you can move on, collect something else. But 1970 Topps or 1970 O-Pee-Chee, that's a very specific set and a very specific design. If I like 71 more, maybe I would prefer a 71. So all things being equal, Bobby Orr autograph versus Bobby Orr autograph, maybe I'd rather have the 71 versus the 70. Well, you've already kind of leaned in and you've got a card with that certain aesthetic. So however many there are, again, since Bobby Orr's still alive, if I want a 71 instead, then I can go make a 71. I go get the card, I get him to sign the card, and then I get exactly what I want. So Eric's may not be as attractive to me, even though it's a Bobby Orr autograph on a 70s hockey card, same concept, but then I can pick and choose. To your point, in a certain way, the fact that I can, in some cases, select a different option, as opposed to the in-pack one where it is what it is, that's the design and that's the year and what. So if you want that year and that's the design, that's what you get. Because that is the case, you've limited the options. It actually funnels the people that are interested into less options. For the on-card, you sign in person. Theoretically, we can have any Bobby Orr card signed in creation. Pick any that is available. As long as you can get your hands on it and the guy will sign it, in theory, you can have any that you want. As long as you're willing to pay for it, as long as he's willing to sign it. So in that way, you actually, even though there's less individual of each card, there's actually more options in some ways.
The reason I mentioned the perceived difficulty in pulling the card is if you look at certain issues, and I'm gonna switch over to baseball, which I know Eric hates, but I know that there's a couple sets in there, and this is going to take the aesthetic of the card, but also it's going to kind of share the perceived difficulty side of it too. You know, Topps archives. You know, every card is autographed. Most of them are the buyback issues, and those even on some of the bigger named players as part of the set, and in terms for Eric's taste, it's like an SP Legends autograph set.
Ooh, SPC
But for baseball, or there's like what was it? The Topps. It was like a clear and acetate one. I can't remember the name of it now. I know it was popular in 2018.
There's actually been a
clear-
bunch of years of it. I know what you're talking about. It's
Yeah, clearly
I'll find the
authentic
name.
or something like that. But anyway, it's kind of like
Yep.
the clear cut set that Upper Deck makes. You know, a clear acetate card has the autos on them. Those I don't like because they made the cards, at least in 2018, they made the cards too dark. And then when they signed them, like you couldn't see the autograph. So it was kind of like pointless of even having the autograph on it. So those sets, though, if you want a quote unquote pack pulled or manufacturer issued card, they're going to be cheaper to obtain of your favorite player or whatever. And the archives I've always thought was cool because some of them have the imagery of the rookie cards. You know, you have like the aesthetic of the rookie card if that's what you want, and it's signed, but they're usually pretty affordable. So, you know, it is definitely an interesting conversation in the choices of the hobby, but there are some things that can't be made sense of, I guess. If you want an autograph, it's the difference between a collector and like someone looking for the perceived value of the card, basically.
So since you brought it up, I'm glad you brought up the buyback thing because in my hand, I from the ComC order. So here's going to be another little spoiler of what was in the ComC order. So here, this is actually a card from 2000, 2001 UD Reserve. So if anybody remembers that series, 2000, 2001 Upper Deck Reserve. So they had two specific years in the early 2000s where they brought buybacks into it. They've done it since, obviously, but this was an early version of the buyback concept for them. So what they did with UD Reserve is they took Upper Deck cards and they purchased them back and then had them autographed. So here's a Medano, and this is a 92-93 Upper Deck Medano card. Normal, they went and bought them back, and they had them autograph it. So this one is numbered to 69. Nice. So they had this one. They were numbered to different amounts depending on the card and the. I've had a couple of these over the years. I actually had one that was numbered to 9. I sold it many years ago, and I've kept some of the other ones. At the time, it made sense, but I kind of wish I still had it. But you know, nonetheless, I've got a bunch of different ones. But what happened with these ones is on the back of it, they put a sticker with the, and these ones came with the second card. So if you want the set, you actually want both cards because this includes the card that is autographed. So this is an on-card autograph of the original on a buyback card, normal, right? But then the certificate of authenticity is a separate card right here. And this serial number will match what's on this one. And here's your authentication to it. Congratulations, blah, blah, blah. And they basically come as a set. And that is how they come together. So this, in effect, is very similar to Eric's example with his Bobby Orr. But it's the equivalent of it because they went and bought back a real card. This is not manufactured after the fact. This is the card, on-card autograph. And here's your certificate of authenticity associated and attached. There it is. But it came out of the pack like this. This is what you got out of the pack. So in a certain sense, you kind of have what Eric was talking about. What's funny is a lot of these, to Eric's point, these are pack pulled, and some of these don't go for as much as you'd think compared to the one where it's just a standalone separate set, even though this was pack pulled, because it's taking an original card and buying it back and then throwing the autograph on there. So it's kind of an interesting little twist on the original question. In this case, we've got the elements, including the pack pulled, but because this is a separate card after the fact, bought back from the secondary market and then autographed after the fact, it's not necessarily some of the lower numbered ones, yes, but some of the other ones are actually available pretty darn cheap.
Think of it too, and this is putting another little spin and getting outside of the question, but we're comparing, auto to auto, just different types.
Mhm.
But look, even and compare some that are pack pulled versus pack pulled, and the insane price difference when they're almost the same card. It's the same player, same autograph, nearly the same card. I've always thought it was crazy when you look at, and I get, again, this goes back to Carlos's point with the aesthetics or preference or whatever.
Mhm.
But take a National Treasures collegiate versus a National Treasures pro, and you can choose basketball or football. The collegiate, in many cases, is going to have a way sicker patch in it because they have that ability of using the bowl patches and all the other things.
Mhm.
Whereas the NFL is maybe going to have 2 or 3 colors, maybe an actual chunky patch or something, but you got the same player. The only difference is in this one, he's in his pro uni, and in this one, he's in his college uni. Likely a better patch over here. They could be serial numbered to the same exact numbering. But that pro uni one, and neither one of them is going to be game worn. That pro uni one is going to be insanely more expensive than that collegiate one. And
Mhm.
that's another one that I get the audience for the pro rookie, the RPA type thing. But when you're wanting a nice copy of the card with a nice patch, and it's not game worn anyway, so you would think people would want the nicer patch, and it's the same player signing the same type of card. But no, way difference. And part of that too is something we haven't mentioned: cost of product. As you go up the tier, like even in hockey, you get up there to the cup, it's going to be way more expensive than that lower tier, Peachy Platinum or whatever autograph, even though it's the same player. I know that's comparing different products, but it's kind of the same thing with that collegiate versus pro on the National Treasures. The product's going to cost a hell of a lot different price. So
Yeah. So the thing is, though, your example is actually a really good one in bringing apples to apples. That's the reason why I wanted to use the buyback example, because this buyback example was actually the closest example similar to Eric's 70 tops Bobby Orr. It's a base card that was signed on card by the person, and then obviously whatever authentication is included in it. But in this case, I brought it into pack pull. But I took the same concept. It would be like if I took that Bobby Orr and put it inside of an upper deck pack, and we put a sticker in the
yeah,
back of it
as
to
a
authenticate.
buyback.
Yeah, so that as a buyback. So what I did is I combined the elements, but then I also pointed out that for an equivalent autograph, and to your point, brand, the power of brand, right? We take an autograph on card. So I'll use Medano because I know that market better than the other ones because I've been collecting them so long. But I take an autograph Medano out of 25, out of like an upper deck brand, or out of like a SP Authentic or whatever. It'll go for a certain price. I go and do the cup or exquisite, still upper deck brand, still autograph out of 25. Price goes up. Just for no other reason than the product name, the product brand. It's basically the brand that we stick in front, and that matters. And in your example you gave with the collegiate versus the pro version, to your point, there's nothing wrong with either one of them. And if you're maybe a collector of the player, maybe you don't care, maybe you're interested in both. But
Yeah.
it does limit the amount of people. The collegiate does limit the amount of people that are interested in it because some people just don't care for the college game, or maybe they got their own alma mater and it's like, yeah, I don't care about Alabama, or I don't care about, whatever other school they went to. So showing them in that uniform is of no attraction to me. But the pro version, maybe I like the pro team. So like Lamar, I think, I don't remember what, I want to say he was with the Cardinals. Louisville, thank you. Louisville
Yeah.
Cardinals. So a Lamar Jackson Louisville Cardinals has a more limited fan base than him in a Ravens uniform, even though it's the same guy. It could be an autograph, it could be an autograph patch, but just the fact that it's Louisville Cardinals versus Baltimore Ravens draws a different audience, or it detracts a certain audience, and that's kind of the angle.
And to throw it out there too, Eric, and you've witnessed this because I believe you have several of them now for your Lemelin PC, and I said his name correctly for you. Compare it and I get the original question, just so we don't get too far off track, was the in-person, because it is a significant difference in price. But look at the Leaf products. Leaf, people can say what they want, but they make some really nice looking cards. They have pro player autographs on there. And whether you choose to believe or not, they're, sticker autoed, but allegedly they're actually signed by the players. And what is the difference in them there? Well, it's Leaf and they don't have the team logo on there. You can make it any team you want. It could be your custom team on Madden if you wanted to pretend. And it's that player's autograph, but you're going to get it at a much cheaper price, even though it's a quality card. Their QC is really good. They look nice. They got pretty much every pattern, color, and serial number that you can think of. And, oh, by the way, in many cases, they're very low numbered. A lot of those Leaf cards, like out of the Leaf metal and stuff like that, they're less than 10 copies for that particular pattern color coordination.
Mm-hmm.
So, but people don't want them because it's Leaf and it doesn't have the logo and, all of that. So it's just another example where it's more just about, I think, the image, the perception, the prestige of the card, like an SP Authentic Future Watch. That's something people go for. It's just weird for the hobby, I guess.
I think though, so this would be kind of my overarching point, and Eric, you get the last word on this one, and then we'll move on to the next piece. But bottom line for me is that I think the peculiarities of the collectors will also take into account the flippers and other folks, but they're also trying to flip it to people who want it. So one way or the other, they have to at least consider the end consumer, one way or the other. Because collectors are so particular in what they like and don't like, those whims play into what holds that value versus another. To your point, it's probably a better value proposition to get that in-person signed autograph. But if it's not the card that I want, then I don't care if it's a better value. Yes, I'm interested in the autograph, but I don't want that one. Or maybe I do want that one, but then in that case, maybe I want to get it myself. So suddenly your version isn't as valuable to me. And so that suddenly plays into it. And the fact that in that scenario, I can potentially go and get it myself done the way that I want it, or maybe I want a different inscription, or like that, all those other elements that you introduce into it. Whereas this one is as it is. This is how it came out of the pack. This is the autograph. This is the card. This is how it was done. This is the year and the brand. But if you do the in-person autograph, then technically you can have almost within reason, as long as the player is willing to play along, you could pretty much have it however you want. I'd like you to do it in blue. I'd like you to do it in black. I'd like you to do it in pink. And again, if they're willing to do it, then you can have it exactly your way.
I had Bret Hart sign in pink.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. But certain people may not be interested in that. It makes sense for him thematically. Like if you're a fan, that actually makes total sense. But then certain people may not be interested in it because of that, which is a little bit weird. But at the same time, though, as soon as you introduce the fact that we can make it customized, then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I want it exactly the way that I want. I don't want to compromise that. Whereas a set that's set up a certain way, then this is the set. This is how it is.
I think one thing too that we didn't mention, and we shouldn't forget, and going back earlier in the conversation when we were talking about the collectors, and I think an in-person auto could appeal to, and I don't want to say that if you collect pack pulled, you're not a collector. I want to make that clear. I mean, blow the comments up. Y'all don't comment enough, but you can roast me if you want to, but that's not what I'm saying here. But don't forget, TTM it may not be as talked about as much, but it is a popular thing. And that's people that enjoy that, that building a collection of autographs that they send to the player, get the auto, get it returned. And there's actually a big audience for that. There used to be channels that were devoted to it. I don't know if they're still around or not, but that's a thing too. And that's another example of, I think the in-person might appeal more to the collector, and the pack pulled more to the trader or the dealer or whatever.
I think it's fair. I think it comes down to what you want to collect. I think it's whatever appeals to you. That's really the big key to it. That my only point, and the reason why I brought it up that way, is that I think as soon as you introduce the ability to customize it and really get it down to exactly what you want, it actually makes us more picky. And in turn, suddenly your version of it may be less appealing to me, if for no other reason than, oh, well, actually, you know what? I'd like it this way. Even though it's a similar concept, even though it's the same person, then, okay, well, if I can have it the way that I want it, well, then I want this set. I want it in this pen, and I want it done this way. And if I can have
I
that,
have a
then
challenge for
I'm gonna
Eric
focus on
when you said that. And I don't know if he's got a start on it yet. But I know you like doing that 69, 70 top set, right? And you've done them autographed and everything else. And I know it would be difficult because some of the players may no longer be around to sign. But you need to get the full set, as Carlos was just talking. Your version may not be appealing. And here's another aspect to it that can sometimes hurt the in-person stuff. Maybe not as often, but you need to build, and this is your challenge. I'm going to make this fun for you. You need to build the full autograph set as much as physically possible, personalized to Bougie Eric. Full set.
Okay. All right.
I think that's a win for everybody. Look,
All right.
and I joked about it with the guys because one of the, again, I'll show the full thing in a full video. Like, it's over 120 cards, so I'm not really reeling that much. One of my favorite things that pickups, other than that Stairmaster card, was that I picked up one copy. I'm not a big fan of Brett Favre's rookie cards. I really don't care about them. Most of them are pretty lame, to be perfectly blunt. However, we got the Pro Set. We got the Pro Set Spanish. So this is a Spanish version of the Pro Set. And I think what would be amazing, Eric, tremendous, would be not swell fella inscription in Espanol.
Oh, very.
No es un buen amigo. Come on. Come on. That's a grail of grails, Eric. The grail of grails.
No es muy malo.
Yeah, Eric, a grail of grail. Just getting Favre to inscribe it in Espanol and then signing it. Greatness.
You could get him to sign his last name drawn out.
These are the things that would be fat. Look, I would love. Look, it's going back to what we talked about in the past. I would spend extra to have Eric's favorite player literally write his last name front and back, because back. Just keep going. Just keep going. We need a tall boy is what we need. We need extra space. He needs more room to go all the way down. Inscribed it on the front and back. All right, authenticate that. Authenticate it. Fantastic. All right, Eric, this is your topic. Last word before we move on. Any last thoughts?
I think you guys made great points. Especially Carlos, you made the point about collecting an autograph set. I do that. I mean, I have these sitting right here. I have a box full of these. These are just the three that are sitting.
Yeah, those are the trilogy ones. By the way, those were super popular. Back when that set came out, there were people that were chasing after that set hardcore. And the Sign of the Times. The Sign of the Times is a super popular set for people to chase from SP Authentic. They love the Sign of the Times.
So I totally get that. It makes all the sense in the world. I guess it goes back to what I originally said was, at work, someone comes in, ask if we have an autograph card of player X. We go, yep, here you go. Look at this. Here's the photos. They were here. And they would still rather have something that I think is probably less unique, something that's manufactured and put out. I know what Brandon said about people think that there's less of them in this way. And maybe that's true. But you just slap a sticker on there. And some of these stickers aren't even like super, super clear. Okay. I mean, there's a few that I've actually had to hold the card and kind of tilt it to see if it's a sticker on there, right? I think the technology is getting better, but there's some where the stickers are super thick. There's some that the stickers have designs in them, or they reflect light. some are just straight silver, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they look horrible. And some people are saying that they'd rather have that than, a on-card, in-person autograph that has player X's name, has Hall of Famer, has how many hits, how many goals, how many blah blah blah, and we're saying, okay, well, this is going to be $30. What you're looking for with that horrible silver sticker is going to be $130. And they teach their own, like we always say. It just doesn't make any sense to me that we complain about stickers, and when given the opportunity to get something that is, in my opinion, is nicer, either people simply don't want it, they don't value it, and it just doesn't doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But
there was one thing I wanted to mention and I forgot, so I want to mention this part of it too, because I know you're more vintage, Eric. But
He's trying to say you're old.
No, I'm not saying that. He has this, and this is actually more in the baseball. I don't know if they do it as much in the hockeys. But the one that really blows my mind, and when you were sitting there talking about the stickers and that sort of thing, and we can go back to aesthetics of the card even, but the ones that blow my mind are the cut signatures that they put into the packs of the legendary players and like the Topps baseball and stuff, and what people will pay for those versus an in-person signed actual card. That one blows my mind because, like, you look at some of them and those cards are 5+ figures, and you could go buy, an actual 50s or 60s card that the player had signed and has been, authenticated and everything else, and get it cheaper. And half of those cuts are just a big ass square cutout with a small, tiny, maybe picture of the player's head, and then this big little this strip of paper with their signature in it. It's the ugliest thing ever. You don't know what the paper come from. It's just a little strip of paper with a signature on it, and basically nothing else to the card. And you could get an actual playing day card with a nice image on it that the player signed, and it's cheaper. That's the one that blows my mind because that doesn't make any damn sense.
Mm. There you go. So, Brandon, segueing off of this one, good topic, Eric, but it was a nice conversation to cover a lot of different angles. Let's kind of segue off of this one, though. Sticking on the autograph front, JSA, CGC. Do you want to kind of lead us into this one here? Give some, lay the groundwork for us.
Yeah, I don't remember what day it was last week. I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
There was an announcement made that CGC had acquired JSA, and kind of interesting move. I know JSA has been asked for a while if they would ever be able to encapsulate cards, because they autograph them, but they're stuck with putting like a sticker on it or giving you a full letter and that sort of thing. And it appears, and I don't have all the details for it, so I don't know what pricing and all of those little technicalities are going to look like, but it looks like CGC is now going to be able to encapsulate, like Eric was talking about, the in-person autos. And it's also going to open up things that JSA is authenticated to be encapsulated. And I think this is a very interesting move for CGC, not just specifically for the card side of things, but they do video games, VHS, comic books. I think they do Funkos. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. I can't remember if they do those or not. But they do several different collectibles. And they used to only do like autographed comics if they had the person come in and sign it. And as you were alluding to earlier, the witnessing of them actually signing it. And now it can actually be authenticated. Like you could go to a show and get something signed, and then JSA could authenticate it, CGC could grade it and slab it. And we have this with Beckett and PSA on, cards. It's nice to have that third option now. Let's be real. Everybody has agreed that CGC has a very nice holder. JSA is top trusted name and autograph authentication, and you're kind of now given that extra option. I think it's going to be great. I'll be curious to see how many people use it. But yeah, I think it's a good option. I'm actually curious to see if it'll help CGC overall, not just in that that little space there with the autographs, but will it draw more attention to people potentially using them? But I thought it was a good move.
I think that's fair. I think obviously I'm on record as being a fan of CGC. And it's one of those things where like, so I'll give all the standard caveats. Okay. So we got a SGC bulk submitter. We've got someone who has who's done podcasts and who's worked with PSA Canada in the past. So, full disclosure for everything. And Eric may or may not own Beckett. So allegedly, we don't know. We don't know for sure, but there may be some association there. So just so all our preconceived statements are already covered. But if you asked me straight up which holder I prefer, it has been the CGC holder. I like the clarity of it. And I put my money where my mouth is. So I'll grab one of the cards here. There's the green PMG. So that's one of those ones. But this one, I picked up on ComC and I had graded with CGC. I could have done it with PSA. I have the option to do that, but I like the CGC holder. So this is for my personal collection. This is for my purposes. Again, you don't have to get it slabbed at all. Again, all the caveats, the standard caveat. You do not have to get it slabbed at all. It is not required. It's not necessary. At certain times, it's just a fancy holder. I wanted a fancy holder for my goddamn card. That was the decision that I made. And I was willing to do that. And I'm quite satisfied with the result. This is fine. This works great for me. And it goes in the collection, and it's going to be great for me. Your mileage may vary. You may want to do something else. But I'm a fan of the holder. And for me, it's nice. And it shows a nice aesthetic on the card. I think it looks great. And it presents well. And that's all I really wanted out of it. And the label covers everything that I wanted to do. And it works. But not everybody's interested in it. Secondary market resale value hasn't been there for a lot of them, which has hurt a lot of the viability of this brand. So anything that kind of helps the brand, I think, is a good thing. We talk about competition and everything. I think it's a good thing. I would love CGC to be a viable alternative, another option in the marketplace that allows, and this is coming from somebody who, by the way, submits cards to PSA, will do so again. And I just showed you a CGC card that I had submitted through ComC. Well, I'm going to have cards submitted through PSA as well. And I'm going to have a card that's going to be coming in through PSA. So clearly I do not have this issue using one or the other, depending on what my purpose is, what I want it for. By the way, sometimes I'll do one for personal collection. Sometimes it's for flipping or whatever. I've done both. It just depends on what I'm trying to do. So for me, it comes down to tool for the purpose. In this case, though, I sincerely hope that adding JSA to their holding, I think it's great that you can now potentially be able to get an autograph authenticated, get it encapsulated, and have that option to be able to do this. I think that's an awesome option if you choose to do so. And it's just good that we have now one more alternative, because right now, previously, it had been PSA will do it, Beckett will do it, but Beckett has had its struggles. So for now, just having one more option, I think is a good thing, because it forces the other ones to keep doing their thing, to keep doing it well, or to keep doing it better. And anything that goes in that regard, I think, is a good thing overall for the landscape. And JSA already has a reputation. They've been around the block a little bit. They've been doing this for a while, and it gives a little more credibility. And with CGC's otherwise power, for whatever reason, they haven't taken off in the sports card space. But it's not like they don't have finances, and it's not like they don't have brand power outside of the sports card realm.
Yep. Yeah, I already have a few things that depending on cost, let me rewind. Depending on cost, I have a few things that I would like to send them that I have had, in person, that I've had done in person myself, that I would like to get in a nice holder and authenticated and everything. That Maze comic, depending on what the cost would be and all of that, I would debate and consider having it reholdered in or crossed over, I guess it would have to be, into the CGC holder because, it's not bad, but the comic people that are big into comics would agree the CGC holder is much nicer than the CBCS holder. And so, I have a few CGC holders for comics, and if I could get it to crossover grade wise and everything, yeah, that would be a plus too. So it'll be interesting to see what the costs and everything are. But I do think it'll be good. I'm curious to see. It's something I'm surprised SGC never did, honestly. I mean, they're all right there down in Florida, and I'm surprised they didn't. I think I can't remember who it was. Was it JSA that did the autograph authentication back in the day on some of the SGC holders?
I don't remember. I know what you're talking about when they had the I want to say, was it Red Label yeah, it was something like that. Red
Yeah, it
Label, I
was
think.
one of the older labels. There was a red label, yes. I can't remember
Yeah.
if it was JSA or not that was the one that did the authentication.
Yeah. I know they had
But
some backing because at a certain point they stopped doing the authentication, and it was when I guess they dropped that association, but they did have access to
right.
authentication, and they did encapsulate autographs at one point until they stopped. So I think it's valid. Eric, any thoughts in regards to this? I think it's just nice to have another option. Really, that's what it comes down to me. Just having one more option is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. JSA at least has a legitimate reputation. So I don't think that's a terrible idea. I think it's a smart move for them. Gives them another thing that they have that they can potentially do. So business is business. It's not a terrible idea to have another option.
Yeah, as a supporter and fan of both companies, I think it makes a ton of sense. I think it's great as a consumer that we will have another option, and that means hopefully prices will come down. And you won't have to pay so much. But I'm really kind of looking forward to see what a JSA CGC holder. I can never remember. Is it CGC? See, they
It's
changed it.
CGC now. It's CGC
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, they changed it. So I want to make sure I got it right. What their holder looks like. You'll probably have both company names on it. And I just think it's fantastic news for the hobby. I think I've made my opinions pretty clear about how I feel about grading cards. But I kind of feel the opposite about authenticating cards and slabbing them and saying, yes, this is a real autograph, because anyone can look at a card of their own and say, okay, I'm okay with the condition of this. Okay. I don't need someone else to tell me. But with autographs, there is a multi-billion-dollar criminal empire out there with selling false stuff, and we see it all the time at the shop. So to have these authentication companies working and trying their best, because some do get through, we know that, helps. So I think JSA is a pretty decent reputation. They've been around for a long time now. They're not a startup that just showed up during the pandemic and is expecting to be number one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And on a side note, I think this pushes Beckett back even further in the top four.
Oh, this has to be a blow to them.
Yeah, this Beckett was already 4 after being number 1 in the past. This is just going to push them back even further.
I do have a question for both of you, because it kind of made me wonder why JSA wanted to, or maybe they did, maybe they got offered. I don't know how the details of it came about, but obviously James Spence used to work for PSA. He was an authenticator for PSA, and then he started his own company and all that. And now he's with CGC. Do you think part of it could be, or I don't know exactly how to word the question, but with the autographs today getting more and more and more like chicken scratch,
Oh, they're so bad.
will the autograph authentication start to become irrelevant? Because I don't really know how you're going to authenticate some of these guys' autos when every card looks different and there's no attention to detail of it. It's just scribbles. Like, I mean, back when the guys literally, signed their name and had nice penmanship, people would try to forge that and some were successful, but there was more, you could tell, like pressure and pen flow and
Right.
that sort of thing. And now it's just like a scribble. Like, do you think autograph authentication will become irrelevant?
The other way of looking at it, I think you're onto something. But the other side of the coin, the other argument would be it's more relevant now than ever because these autographs are so poor. These current athletes are so lazy and just don't care. This is a nuisance to them. They don't take pride in it like the players before them. Somewhere the ball got dropped and the message got lost. So with these scribbles, I think the other side of the coin would be that it's even more relevant that they have a long a long list or a large file of these players' autographs that they can quickly go through on the computer and match up when somebody brings them something, because it's so ridiculous that they may be more in demand than ever before. Because I mean, this guy is putting check marks. They're just going like this.
So I think to Brandon's point, though, basically, when you create a signature that is so simplified and so basic, you actually reduce the number of telltale signs and points that you can do. And by the way, technology is not the answer, because technology is going to tell you, yeah, it's a blob. Like if it's a blob, it's a blob, it's a blob. The machine can be like, yeah, it's a blob. Well, if it's a blob, anybody can make a blob. If there's no distinguishing features, it's not really, I'm saying blob because if it's no distinguishing features, what are we even talking about? Then forging it is a simple matter of being able to replicate a blob. And a lot of people can do that. That's not that complex. And how could you tell the difference with auto pen? Is there really that much of a difference at that point if there's not really that much going on? Like, there's not that much happening. So you could try to figure out pressure points and a couple of things, but again, if there's not much going on, there's no real pressure points. You're literally just barely. So there was an example. I don't have the video, unfortunately, but there was an example of, I want to say, Conor McGregor.
Yeah, Carlos. I was waiting for a pause. That was in my head. I'm already with you. You go ahead.
Yeah. So there was an example of a video that was out there of Conor McGregor, and Conor McGregor was signing fight posters. And it was at the point where, like, literally he was applying no pressure, which is to say he could literally just go boom. They literally were just sliding them one after another because he barely had to touch the poster with the pen. The pen was barely making contact with the poster. So, like, what pressure points? It's just enough to get ink on it, just to touch it.
It was the most disgusting example yet I think I've seen of a professional athlete signing something. Now, I wouldn't say that to his face, obviously. I'd send it. I would send it in a slightly strongly worded email, though. But I wouldn't say it to his face. Mama didn't raise no stupid boy. But that is the laziest thing I've ever seen. He was basically either doing, I forget if it was a swirl or a check mark. I mean, it was so disgusting. And I look around my office and I'm looking at, these legendary players, like Bobby Orr and Gordie Howe, and I'm looking at, Phil Esposito and Bobby Hull, that took their time and have these beautiful signatures that you could read every letter, whether it's the first one they signed at a show for a 2-hour signing at a show, or the last one. They took pride in it. And for these current, athletes to sit there and just go check, 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 or swirl, swirl, and that's it. And that's their autograph. And you expect me to pay hundreds of dollars? It is absolutely disgusting.
I'm actually showing the video. So for the video version of it, I'm actually quickly showing here the McGregor video from back then. So this is one of many sources that have it, but I'm just showing. So for the people listening to audio, it's basically Conor McGregor there in his suit and everything. They've got a fight poster of it, and all it is, putting a little swirl on there. I'll try to include a link to this for you if you want to check it out if you're curious, but it's a couple of seconds. It's just, he literally is just like, boom, and then somebody slides the poster, boom, slides the poster, boom. Like there's barely anything happening. Like it's indistinguishable from anything resembling an actual letters.
And
yeah, I mean, it's almost like
charged hundreds of dollars for that. Hundreds.
The players, not all of them have a clear signature where you can read every letter, like Eric was saying. But there are players out there, and I don't know if y'all will be able to see this, but it's not like he's not putting every single letter of his name, but it's a signature, and he signs it the same way every time. And when it's like just a little swoop, you could literally show somebody how you're doing it. Conor could have walked off and just showed 10 little swoops, and somebody else could have picked the Sharpie or marker up and just started making swoops. And there you got, another batch of Conor McGregor autos. And that's just kind of what I was like thinking there. There's so many of them that you see now. It's like, it's illegible to even see a letter in the autograph. It's just a scribble.
Yeah.
And at some point, I just don't know how you could legitimately authenticate and will autograph authentication in a way start becoming irrelevant on some of these newer players. Not to mention, you were bringing up the pack pulled versus in-person thing. Players are signing so many cards today to be put into the packs. I mean, how many do we need? Like, how many autographs do we need of these guys out there? And then if you throw the in-person element to it, or if they retire and they go to shows like we have experienced with guys that we grew up watching, there's going to be an overabundance. There's going to be, the autograph is going to become the base card. Basically, it's going to have to, just because there's going to be so many autographs out there of these guys. So I'm wondering if JSA hasn't sort of looked at that for the future and has kind of asked, is this service going to continue to be a relevant thing, or will players even maybe stop signing as much in person so we won't need to be authenticating them? Who knows? But I just thought it was an interesting question there to throw at you guys.
Sure. No, that's fair. I think one of the things is that there's still, I think, value to it from the perspective of the past, previous players, different autographs that are there. So there's definitely still a marketplace for that. Definitely still demand for that. To your point about the autographs becoming ubiquitous for a lot of these players, yeah, the answer is yes. Now, and this is coming. So again, so we're all being on the same page here. This is coming as somebody who is a heavy collector of autograph cards, not of everybody, but of my players and my collections, certain PCs that I have. As I went through that ComC mail day and everything, a lot of Medano cards. So Medano has been my primary collection for many a year. I showed one card there. Between the cards that came in, I can tell you right now that I have over 313 different certified pack pulled Mike Modano autographs in my collection. That's 313 different with no duplication. And that's still a drop in the bucket compared to what exists. And he's not the most prolific signer out there. There are plenty of prolific signers. When I'm collecting in my collection, a lot of my Brett Favres, a lot of them are autographs. Like a lot. Now, I've picked up some more base cards, some inserts and stuff like that because I think it's fun to have a nice variety and things. But I've got my fair share of his autographs as well in different versions and different varieties. I do it because it's fun for me. But let's not get this twisted. It's not rare. It's not difficult to find an autograph of these players. A lot of these players have already signed a lot, especially players who are still active, who are still out there. You know, every year that goes by, another set of products comes out. Like as part of when I go through that mail day and I actually record the video and I'll record it. It's going to take me some time. I'm going to record that video. It's probably going to be like 25, 30 minutes because it's going to be me going through a whole stack of cards where you're going to see a lot of autographs. I can assure you of that because that's one thing that I collect. But it's at the same time, there's also lots of them out there. So it's not like there's a shortage of these things. And that's going to continue going forward. To Eric's point, I don't blame the players because it's like, okay, but you got people asking for autographs in person. You got people asking for autographs at the arena or at the game or whatever. And at a certain point, it's like, it is kind of a burden after a while. It's like, all right, how many times am I going to have to sign my name? Like, come on, guys. And that's why some players start off with a nice signature in some cases. And it progressively gets worse. It gets shorter. Until eventually becomes some initials or something. Like it's a self-preservation move at that point. They're like, look, I've signed so much crap already at this point. I don't want to sign. I've made told the story. I made the joke. Latin names are 4 names. So if anybody is aware, Latin names are 4 names. Well, that's my legal name has 4 names on it. So when I was signing my mortgage paperwork, you got to sign your legal name. So I remember going to them. It's like, so can I sign my first and last name? They're like, no, you got to sign your full legal name. And the amount of times I had to sign it on my paperwork, even just sitting there in one sitting for one time, going through the paperwork alone and having to sign my full name every single, I was already pissed off and I was done with it. Like just by the time I was done signing one set of paperwork. Now imagine signing even your normal name tens of thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times. How long until it gets old? It won't take that long. Like it will get old fast. And you're like, I got to shorten this up.
I actually, obviously being a fan of the Nationals and watching Juan Soto come up and everything.
I thought you were going to say somebody who's constantly asked for autographs and hounded, but okay, fair enough.
No, actually, I was from here to that wall away from him, but I never did get to actually ask him for an autograph at a game. But to that point, though, I actually only collect certain Juan Sotos that have like imagery or whatever on the card that has a connection to the wild card game or playoffs or whatever. I have a few other ones, but now that you said that, it makes me want to go hunt for his early in-person autos from when he was in the minor leagues because he was getting asked so many times because he was like blowing his way up through the minor leagues. He told the other Dominican players and he himself, if somebody was getting his autograph in person, he just did JS. Like that's all he wrote was JS. And so I have not seen him sign that way since he was in the minor leagues. So it would be kind of a cool piece to add because I know there's not many of those out there where it's just the JS, So when you mentioned that, it made me think back on that.
And that wouldn't even bother me. I have always felt that as long as I can make out the first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name, I'm good. Because I understand everything that you guys are saying. Especially since, I've in the last handful of years, I've worked shows and I've sat next to these people and they just keep going. Right. So I get it. I really do. I've seen the other side. They've asked to take breaks, their hands, especially the older guys with arthritis, their hands hurt, I get it. But with some of these young, newer modern day athletes, you cannot make out a single letter. You don't if their name begins with a B, there for $1 million, you cannot make out a B at the beginning of that autograph. And that is, complete nonsense also. And it's just unbelievably frustrating when we have, we've had some of the current Bruins come in, these young kids, I mean, Jeremy Swayman brought his father in with him. I mean, he's just a young kid. And he's basically just 2 letters and the number 1. But you know something? At least you can make out the J. That's a J. But some of these other people, you cannot even make out a letter. And that Conor McGregor thing is probably the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And when it comes to, seeking autographs and collecting autographs, because he is such a big name, he's good. The people who own those posters now are going to charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars because the great Conor, McGregor signed them. And it's a shame. It's too bad.
How many did you have on pre-order?
7.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah,
that is fair. By the way, as a quick aside, we're going to move on here to the last topic, but as a quick aside, if you're curious, the Conor McGregor was in the Amazon Prime exclusive remake of Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal. Not bad. Not an amazing movie, just to be clear. But at the same time, if you already have Amazon Prime, you can watch it basically for free. So, I did, and I was amused.
I thought that was going to the movie theaters. Didn't even make it to the theaters. It's right.
I think Amazon Prime bought the exclusive rights to it because it's straight through them. They basically gave the release date and everything. They just said straight up Amazon Prime. So I will say it's not bad, but I think they should have cut it down a little bit more. I didn't think it needed to be. I think it was like 2 hours. I didn't think it needed to be 2 hours. But I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was ripped. He was jacked for that movie. Like it was actually ridiculous. And McGregor was entertaining. I'll just say this. This is a short movie review without any spoilers. I'll say Conor McGregor was entertaining for what he was. It was very straightforward, but for what they needed him to do, he was able to do it well enough. I got a bit of a kick out of it. It was a bit silly. It was a bit campy, but it was fun for what it was once they finally got into it, because they let it build for a while and they let the movie run a little bit too long, in my opinion. But once you finally got down to it, and I will say the fight scenes and stuff with the 2 guys and everything, I thought were pretty good. I think it was decent for what it was. But again, I'm watching it for free on Amazon Prime. I'm not paying any extra for this. So obviously my standards are not as high as they would be if I was paying top dollar to watch this.
In your opinion, having seen it, better or worse than the original?
Ooh, no, I think the original is better. But I think if you're just looking for some fun, I think it's a fine movie. I thought it was interesting the angle they tried to take on it. Because again, I feel like the script, like they had an idea for what they wanted to do, but it was like they didn't get all the way there. And it felt like you guys could have worked a little harder to try to sell this idea that you're trying to sell. And at the end of the day, it's like all we're looking forward to is just a fight scene with Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor. And like I said, Conor McGregor being just a nut job, it works. It works for it's not difficult to do. And Conor McGregor, what's funny though, is if you know Conor McGregor from the UFC world and you think of him as a UFC fighter, he's recognizable, but he's also unrecognizable because I think he's got new teeth and he's obviously a lot more jacked up now, like compared to what he was at his fighting weight, because he was he worked out. He was very ripped, but at the same time, like he's gained a lot of muscle mass. But again, given his size and everything for an action movie, it actually plays well. So it actually works pretty well for that standpoint. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't parlay this into another couple of movies like that as a henchman or something like that, and some roles like that. I could see it. I could buy him as in those roles. I think he'd be able
to end up in the next Expendables movie, like Ronda Rousey.
I think you could do worse. I think that would be fine. I think that'd be a fine addition to it, and he'd be able to carry his weight if they decided to go that route. I think he'd be fine. Any thoughts there, Brandon, before I move on? You seem in
No, I haven't watched the movie. My wife's seen the there was like a commercial preview thing for it on I think YouTube had it on there. So we seen that it was on the Amazon thing, but I'm not a big movie person, especially nothing like that. But
That's fine. If you happen to have Amazon Prime and you're not going to have to pay any extra to see it, watch it and then you can judge for yourself. That'd just be my thing. I already have Amazon Prime anyway because I use it for the shipping and everything. So for me, it's very easy. I just flipped it on and hit play, and we were off to the races.
yeah, we have Prime, but I don't know if we have it. I don't know if we have the access for the movies because it's like a business account. So I don't know if it gives you the movie stuff and all that.
Interesting.
And the music or whatever.
Because I know the normal Prime includes all that stuff. So
I'd have to ask her because she handles all the Amazon orders. Because then she does all the Christmas shopping and any of the other random shit throughout the year that she orders on Amazon.
Gotcha. Sounds good. So let's move on. One more thing that we'll touch on then today, before we end the podcast episode. And this was just something I brought up to the guys, so I don't think it won't take too long to explain, but let's quickly talk about it. And this is something I've had come up the last couple of weeks, and that is a couple of collectors. So because I'm entrenched into the lane of player collecting, I have had the opportunity to be in contact with some other player collectors for different things that I do. Like I said, Medano's my main collection for it, but then I've got the Britt Baker, the infamous dentist PC, and other things like that. But I've had actually a couple of occasions in the last couple of weeks where some other people who have built up nice collections and gotten some nice cards related to that have either reached out or made available some of their pieces because for their own reasons, they want to cash out a little bit, or they've got something going on that they want to be able to fund. A lot of times it's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's just they're looking to move in a different direction because they don't have the time or want to make sure they allocate the funds towards something else they're working towards, which is perfectly fine. But because I was able to at least have some of those contacts and those relationships, I was able to, in one case, reach out and make a deal very quickly. And in the other case, have them reach out to me and make an offer that, if there's anything here that's interesting to you, we can work something out. And in both cases, I was able to, in one case, I've already got the card in hand. In the other case, in principle, we've got a deal for a couple of nice pieces to add to the collection. So that's been a good way for me. But I've noticed it there. And then also on the Medano side, I've noticed a couple of longtime collectors have started moving some of the pieces off to other Medano collectors. So there's like this consolidation phase that happens when you know that there's a group of certain collectors that are building up these nice collections. And it is interesting. So in this case, I was the beneficiary of one. And in the other one, I was just watching because I watched the cards change hands from one side to the other. So I just thought it was interesting and curious if you guys had any thoughts or experiences dealing with the consolidation of other maybe longtime collectors making available some pieces that you were able to add to your collection or offering it to you or any combination therein.
Go ahead, Eric.
I wish. I really haven't. Now, again, being lucky enough to work where I work, I get first dibs on stuff that come through the door. So if it's, stuff that I just, I would collect overall, vintage hockey or, if it's Reggie Lumlin stuff, I get to take a look at it and decide whether or not, I want to, pay for it and bring it home. But I have not had the opportunity yet of someone reaching out and saying, hey, I'm at this point in my life for whatever reason. I think it's time to clean out the house. You want to come over and take a look at it. Are you interested? I haven't had that opportunity yet. And if I ever do, I hope it's for a good reason, not a bad one, for that person's, on that side of the coin. But working where I work, it's great when you start seeing people park their car. You notice that I said that correctly, even though I'm from Boston.
Park the car.
Park the car in the parking lot. And instead of just walking directly through the front door, or they open up the trunk and they start pulling things out, and they have boxes, and I go, what are they bringing in? Because you never know. You never know. Is it garbage? Most of the time, it is complete garbage. Hey, I have some. I got some complete sets from the 90s. You know, these things are really valuable. And it's like, please take them back to your car and drive away.
And like, sir, what are you saying? What is a car?
Yeah, right. So, you know, other times you come in with a box and you're like, all right, what's in here? And you open it up and it's like it's like, you know, in Pulp Fiction with the briefcase, and it's just the light is just hitting you in the face, and you're like, is that what I think it is? It's so beautiful. So, you know, that's always fun. That's the best part of the job, I think. But I have not had someone call me up and say, hey, it's time for me to move this stuff. Why don't you come over and take a look? You know, so.
Fair enough.
So as far as collecting, I haven't had anybody contact me per se, but I did stumble into a few nice pieces that I was able to get for the Michael Taylor PC one time. I'd seen a card listed for sale on eBay. Reached out to the seller. We started communicating. Turned out he had much more Michael Taylor stuff than what he had online. And so I was given first dibs on a few pieces that I'm really glad I was able to obtain off of him. And, you know, that was a situation where Carlos was saying somebody getting out or changing their collecting or whatever, maybe needing some extra money and unloading some stuff. And there was opportunity there because I was able to, you know, pick a few pieces that I needed for my collection. Doing the reselling thing, I'm going to tie that in here for a minute. And I don't normally bring that into the card stuff, but that's something that I wish I had more connections with, because that's something that people have been doing that for a while, and who wind up with the awesome scores or the clearing outs and that sort of thing. They do it by making connections, letting people know what you do, you know, that sort of thing. And then by word of mouth, it kind of gets passed along. Or if you find somebody that you know goes and cleans out storage units or estates or whatever, they know they have a contact and that sort of thing. So that's something I do want to work a little bit more this year, trying to get a couple connections that way. Now, I will say, I'm sure folks out there have experienced this. And hell, Carlos might have even experienced it with his Medanos and stuff. It kind of can be a catch-22 though, because you'll have the people that may have things in their collection that you would like to obtain, but they also sometimes can leverage you because they know that they have it and you want it. They can play a little bit of hardball and kind of toss the price a little difficult, because they know you're likely to pay stronger than someone else. So I can see that being a negative side to people knowing what you collect. But yeah, it's happened on those few occasions. There was also a time with Rollblades, I got a couple pieces. And Jason Robertson, I got a mail day today, so I figured this would be a good segue and take a moment here to do a mail day. It came from Boston. I think I know what it is, and if it is what I think I know what it is, it's even funnier, and I really do appreciate it. But I will go into details once I get the package opened. I want to see if it has the letter "Get this crap out of my house" like the last one. Let's see. Oh no, it says, "Like I said, you deserve this." So I deserve this. And yes, it is what I expected. So thank you, Eric. I got the Mandalorian version of Jason Robertson in the UD portraits. And the reason I said it's funny is because I really appreciate that Eric felt the need to spend $5.25 on sending the Jason Robertson UD portraits. But I do have a stack of stuff and I'm going to repay you the favor. And I do sincerely appreciate it because I think it's a cool card. I'm calling it the Mando version because it looks like.
Well, Eric has 4,700 of them. It's like a little stack. Like he obsesses. He's got a wallpaper. You can't see it in his current visage, but when he walks into the other, he's literally wallpapered all the way down his hallway, so he can stare at them all day long, all day and all night. It's actually tremendous.
I like it. He's got like the little Star Wars uniform on.
You deserve it, buddy. You deserve it.
Well, I do appreciate it, but I was laughing when I got it out of the PO box because I was like, did he really spend $5 to send this? And I was like, is it the Robertson portraits? Because that card's not even worth $5.
I was gonna say, Eric, you're talking about how expensive shipping is to Canada and all that stuff. But how is it $5.25? What did you send it as?
He sent it as he had tracking and everything on it.
Okay. Tracking makes more sense.
You could have just put it in a plain white envelope, but I do.
You could have put a plain white envelope at that point. Slap a stamp on that sucker.
You're worth $5 to me.
Well, I do appreciate it, and I still have a couple here for you. So I'm going to make a little stack of them because it's more cost efficient.
Now, actually, since you brought it up, the resale side, actually, it's funny. Now, you're right that if somebody knows you collect a certain character set, whatever, certain cards, it can play that way. Now, I've kind of nipped that in a bud in the sense that I will pay what I think is appropriate. I have paid strong for cards that I really want. I'm actually more inclined to pay strong, honestly, in an auction environment or an eBay auction or whatever. If someone comes and offers it to me, I actually almost take more of a tack. Now, this is just me personally. I almost take more of a tack, like you almost have to convince me. Even if it's something that is interesting to me, like I'm not going to overpay. You're not going to have the chance to play the FOMO game on it because as I've said before, and I'm sincere when I say this, I don't have to add any more pieces to my collection. My collection is right now in a very good place where if I just let it be, I could literally sit there. Look, I haven't even sorted the damn thing fully, Eric. I know what I have, but I don't know which box it's in. Like I need to hire an intern just to sort this shit because I'm not going to do it. I hate sorting. It's the worst. The only thing I will do is as stuff comes in, I mark it off the checklist. So I know I physically possess it. It is in the box. Which box it's in or which section it's in, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. So the point is that the collection has gone on long enough that I'm satisfied with it. Do I still add more pieces to it? Absolutely, because it's still an enjoyable pursuit for me to do that. But you can't extort me. You can't extort. There's nothing you have that can extort me at this stage. So I'm going to look for the deal that I feel is appropriate. Now, in this situations that I gave, the examples that I go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but when you said that, is there anything left on the checklist though that would be? You said you're happy with where it's at, but is there anything on there that you would have, like, if it became available, you would make a strong push to be able to obtain it because you never thought it would be available or attainable?
Well, the second half of your sentence, no. Almost everything that I would want is attainable. I either know where it is, I know somebody who has a copy, or it's a situation where it's just an issue of money. You just have to be willing to put enough money on the table, and you can make it yours if that's what you wish. Like the shield cards, I know somebody who has probably 4 or 5 of them. And I know a couple of the other Medano collectors who have a handful.
That would make them available.
If you threw enough zeros into the offer, they would. Like at the end of the day, they're not idiots. They're like, but they paid very strong. They paid stronger than I would for the same card. The only card now, the first half of it that I would pay strong for, or that I would pursue strongly, would be something like the Run for the Cup. just because it's one of the late 90s ones that is one of the key missing pieces in there. But it is numbered to 100, so there should be some out there. There are some available. They come up from time to time. But at this point, the price point on those has gone up. So it would still require a pretty good offer on my part to get it out of somebody's hands. Or, if it came up for auction, it would probably go for a pretty penny. It'd be very strong. But almost everything else, almost all the 90s grails. So let me use 90s grails. So I won't even talk about shields. Shields are on their own separate category. But of the 90s grails, I have basically everything. Almost everything that is available that can be done in that. The stuff that I'm missing is like, and I have no problem saying it, it's like UD Choice Reserve. Number to 100 came out of the UD Choice product. It shouldn't be as difficult as it is, but the supply dried up years ago. I watched one of those changed hands in one of those consolidations that I was talking about. Literally one of those changed hands from one Medano collector to another. So they're out there, but there's not that many, and they're consolidated into a handful of hands that are holding. And I'm sure there's some folks out in Europe and some places that I think one of the Medano collectors that transferred was out in Europe. So they had them in Europe for years, and they decided they were willing to make them available. And this other person, who I know is very aggressive, is willing to bid aggressively, and is willing to pay strong, was able to make a deal with them. And I'm sure they did well. Probably paid more, honestly, than I would have. But under the right circumstances, I would love to get a copy because it would fit in that section of the collection. Down the road, I still think I will. I think at some point. But now I have the luxury of patience. There's no hurry. I can wait. But that's why I say, you can't extort me at this point on any of these cards. But if the right piece came around, yeah, I'd bid strong on it. But you're not going to FOMO your way into making me pay twice as much as I want to. That's just where we're at now. The other side of the equation, though, and I was going to kind of pose this question. This is more of a hypothetical, so both of you can answer this one. Sometimes where it's tricky is the other side of the coin, because sometimes I'll come across duplicates and things like that. And I know some of the other collectors who collect the people as well. And I'm willing to sell. I'm a little hesitant, though. Oftentimes, I don't go out of my way. I don't reach out and try to make those kinds of deals. I usually will just go to eBay and just make it available. Whoever wants it wants it. I find it very complex when you are known as a collector of X, whoever. And then some people know that, and then they come by and they're like, "Oh, do you have anything available?" And you may have, but at the same time, the pretense is the bro price. And I'm like, and I'm a big advocate for there is no bro price. I'm sorry. If I'm interested in selling it, that means because I have in mind what I would like to get out of it. And if you're within that range, then yeah, I'm not going to rake you over the coals. In the same vein, I'm not going to extort you. But at the same time, I'm not interested in taking half of what I could get out of it just to make you feel better.
Right.
Maybe that's just me. Just something that I would throw out there. Just a question for you guys.
Well, most of the players I collect, I don't know of other. Obviously, there is other collectors of them because that's how I just told you there's another Taylor collector. I didn't expect that, but there was. I have been approached a few times via email regarding my Robertson Green PMG.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I've been approached. It's been a while, but I've been approached several times in the past on my Juan Soto gold labels. The thing is, and I think with what I have in my collection, it's pieces that it would take a price that would have to really interest me in letting them go. Especially, and it's going to be even more so the case now that I have adjusted myself back to what that has meaning, or that I really enjoy or the stuff that I really enjoy, because I've accrued those pieces for a purpose. It's not like just slapping things together and oh well, it doesn't mean anything. It would have to take a number, and I don't collect the high end guys, but I enjoy the stuff I have, and I take a lot. I don't want to say pride because I think that's the wrong word, but there's been a lot of enjoyment, a lot of excitement on being able to get some of those pieces. Like, as silly as it is, the green, PMG of Robertson, I wanted and had to have that one because, no, I'm not pumping him, but because of the serial number, obviously the first 10 are the greens, and it just worked out that the one I have is 002/100. So it's like the only way to get the green in a air quotes jersey number. And that was just cool to me. So
eBay 1 of 1.
Yeah, eBay 101, and I don't think the person that sold it realized that, but it's just the little silly things. And I'm sure everybody out there, if you have a collection that you're passionate about, you'll find little nuances. My Taylor stuff, okay, that row right back there, okay, that's the 2014 Bowmans. I have 4, 2 autoed, 2 non-autoed of the reds from that. You were talking about duplicates. If somebody approached me, no, I'm not selling you one. I want all 10 of them. Like, I'm sorry, but I've been working to put them all together. I've also been working to, since the rainbow got boring and, I haven't been able to find the superfractor, the next best thing was working on jersey number, serial number for all of them. And so that's what I've been doing. And Eric does the same thing. You said you try to do all the little quirks and stuff with that set you put together.
I'll just
It's
make stuff up. Now I have to do what you said.
yeah, it's like you try to find things
Yep.
to not only make it fun, but like
Yep.
meaningful and exciting and challenging. And so I have a good bit of the jersey numbers of the 2014 Taylor Autos. But as I get to the out of the 150s and 199s, those get more difficult because there's so many more of them out there to track down the specific number. It gets a little harder. But yeah, I mean, I think the stuff on my PC, and I'm sure you're the same way, if it had the right number, maybe you would let something go. But when you're a collector and you're really passionate about some of the stuff you own, or a player in a collection, you've put time and effort and, fun, emotion, even, that's a silly word to put into a hobby, but a lot of it's emotional. And I just think there's some things you don't let go. So,
And no bro prices unless you're really a bro. And what I mean by that, and I'm being serious, is I would give, you guys a deal on something because not only would that help you, it would make me feel good, right? So I'm getting money. I'm feeling good that I'm helping you guys out. I'm happy that you're happy. And that whole, I know it's going into a good home, scenario. Well, that's fine. And I don't mind taking a little bit off, to hook my buddies up with a little bit of happiness and sunshine. That's great. But don't expect that if I don't know you, just because we collect the same thing. As Carlos was saying earlier, just because I'm a fellow Madonna collector, that doesn't mean that I should get a deal. I mean,
yeah.
I think it's become a very standard tactic. It's become a very standard tactic, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of the, I PC them and it'll go to a good home and all that stuff. Like, I have heard that pitch many a time, and I'm just sitting there like, and I have to resist the urge to be rude and say, look, I'm just gonna be honest. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Because if I'm actually selling the item, if I'm the one who's selling the item, and you're not just reaching out to me out of the blue, if I'm the one who's selling the item, I have a purpose for why I'm doing it.
I want my money.
I have an idea in mind of what I would like to get out of it. And frankly, at that point, when I'm selling it, I don't care who buys it. No, I don't care what they buy it for. And I don't care if they want to set it on fire right after they buy it. That's their business. They own it. It's their property after they bought it from me.
When I bought this, I messaged the seller and I told him, I said, not asking, trying to lowball you or anything like that. I said, I'm, a big Taylor collector. I was just trying to see if there was a number that we both could come up with that we would both be happy with. And it was a pretty easy negotiation. He asked me, about what I would be at. I threw a number out. He said, well, I was looking to be more here. I said, hey, how about that? And tossed the number out. He was happy. I was happy. And, you know, it wasn't, I was trying to talk him down. I know I probably paid more than 99.9% of the world population on that card, but I wanted it. And, there's some things I will pay stronger on. And I just wanted him to know that I was serious about it. Not that I was looking for the bro price, but that I was a serious buyer and I was a collector, and that I wanted to negotiate a realistic number that we both could be happy with. So I think that's a better approach than, hey man, I'm a collector of it. I had to, I'll be honest, the Tatis red that I had, I was kind of mad when I seen that card back on the market. Although I sold it to purchase my daughter a bass guitar, and I gave my son some money out of it when I sold it, I sold it and gave the guy I wouldn't call it a bro price, but you might as well refer to it as that.
Sure.
Because it was the old story. Oh, this is my son's favorite player, blah, blah, blah. And I bid it because I felt, oh, well, I'm doing something kind for this guy, for his son, and I'm selling it to do something for my kids. So, it works out. What a perfect scenario story. And then, of course, when the boom and the pandemic and all that stuff, I see it back on, and then I noticed where it was being sold from. And I was like, he had already sold it prior, because the dude that bought it, I think, was in Utah or something, and it wound up being for sale in Texas or something like that. So I was like, yeah, that guy bullshitted me all the way around. But
like I
it
said,
happens.
no bro price unless you're really a bro. Everyone else, pay me my money.
Well, I think so my main point that I want to make. So there was twofold to this conversation I wanted to. The first one was just curious about the consolidation, if you've encountered a little bit of that. So the second half of this, so that we're all on the same page, is not knocking anybody. You do you for whatever reason you see fit, as a buyer or as a seller. I just think it's dealing in bad faith. So let me give you both perspectives, because I've been on both ends of this transaction. As a buyer, so let's say I'm the collector, you've got it out there. I'm not going to do the, I'm a real collector, blah, blah, blah. Because if you're talking about some of my PC people, like, I will pay strong for some items. But I'm also going to deal in good faith, in the sense that I'm going to deal with you the same way that I would deal with anybody else who has the item. In the sense that I'm going to reach out and say, okay, so what do you have in mind? What do you want to do? Other side of the equation, I'm a buyer, but this other person is the collector and they want to work out some kind of a deal. I'm not going to go out there and ask for a bro price. What I like to do oftentimes, and this is just my way of doing it, is I let them lead. What do you have in mind? What do you want? What are you trying to get out of it? Because it allows you to set the bar. It lets you set a standard, because then we kind of know where we're at. Because if you have an idea that's out of whack and I'm over here, price-wise, whatever the case may be, the difference is going to be, if it's a quote-unquote collector, here's the difference. Where if you're like a general dealer, I probably will still try to push the price down a little bit more. I'll probably try to squeeze you. Even if you come up with a good number, I'll probably try to knock a couple extra percentage points off of it, because, hey, who doesn't love a bargain, right? Whereas if you're a collector who I know is a collector of this, and you give me a valid, legitimate price that is reasonable, I may just leave it at that. I may just say, yep, fair enough. Sounds good.
The other thing with the collector aspect, if it's a collector selling, and you, going back to an earlier statement, you said you might have some duplicates tucked away of some things.
It happens, yeah.
You could even negotiate that, because maybe this person is just trying to get out of the higher end piece and looking to move it and substitute with a lower end piece or something. Maybe you could talk a little trade cash deal to upgrade, and then you're getting a piece for your collection and they're getting a piece back for their collection type deal. So that sometimes could work as well.
Absolutely. My point is that if you're dealing honestly, so this is kind of my key point here. If you're dealing honestly from a position of, I'm not interested in using tricks, I'm not trying to, trying to solicit emotions or try to do whatever. Because I've seen people, they'll do the guilt trip thing. Oh, but I'm a real collector, I really want to. And I'm sitting there and like, again, I have to kind of resist the urge to go like, I don't care.
I do not care.
They're like, that's nice for you. And I have no issue with that. And if you're willing to work with me with what is reasonable, I'm amenable to it. But on the other hand of it, I'm also not going to try to take advantage of it on the other side of the transaction either. So I want to be consistent on my stance, is that I don't sit there and try to present it like, well, I collect this person and I built this collection and everything. And it's like, and it will probably be in a, forever home, so to speak, and all that. So therefore you should give me an amazing smoking deal that you wouldn't give to anybody else. I don't think that's fair. And I'm not interested in doing that. If it's not in my budget, it's not in my budget. And where I think has helped me then secure, if they come across something down the road and they'll reach out to me, is that I've dealt with them fairly before. Because I don't pull a bunch of bullshit, AKA try to pull these stunts, then they're like, no, we'll come to a deal. It'll be a fair price and I will get paid right away. And no mess, none of that, no nonsense. You're going to be more inclined to deal with those folks and then come back to them again later, because you'll get a fair shake and you're not going to get any of the rest of the silliness or the drama. I think there's value to that in business, just not being the dramatic one. By the way, if the price doesn't make sense, then my answer is no, and that's fine. I don't take it personally. That's okay. You needed that price. Doesn't work for me. Doesn't make any sense for me. That's why I was talking about those shields earlier. I know, or I have a pretty good idea what some of those guys have paid for them. I wouldn't pay that price. Flat out. Even if I had it sitting right there. I wouldn't do it. So good on them for getting that price. Good on them.
And they want at least that to sell one, because they don't want to take a loss. So
I think the takeaway from this whole conversation that we have is we definitely have been able to confirm that nobody else collects the people or sets that Eric collects. Because if he would have been approached by now, his room would be empty. And we know the purchase price is about 1.5 to 2 chocolate sticks. And since everything is still there, we can confirm that there's no other Reggie Lemlin or Boston guys or Oars or anything like that are looking to obtain some pieces, because it's all still there. And so we can appreciate Eric's collection, and there have been no chocolate sticks had. Two chocolate sticks. We got confirmation. 2 chocolate sticks for the whole collection.
Absolutely. But that's the bottom line to this whole thing really came down to that, though. I've always thought it interesting. Again, the dynamics of the angle that people take, I guess their negotiation tactics is maybe the way I would phrase this, have always been a fascinating point to me. And I love how many times I've had conversations where somebody tries to use that angle. I'm like, nah, that ain't going to work for me. Sorry. But then, like I said, if you deal with people, I think, fairly, and you deal with them honestly in that regard, then I think they'll respect you for it. I have found that to be the case in a lot of instances. They'll respect you for it. And then when they do come back with you for something, then generally speaking, it's very easy to come to terms, because everybody understands where they sit. They understand where you're at. They won't come at you with some silliness. And you would be shocked how often just asking the person what they have in mind and you let them talk first, sometimes they come with a very reasonable answer that maybe it was even lower than what you were thinking in your head. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. So there's no point in me then fighting you on it any further. Like, I'm getting a good deal. I feel comfortable with it. If that's what you want and you're happy with it, then I think we've got ourselves a deal.
To clarify, though, for all the listening and viewing audience, when he says message with what do you have in mind, that doesn't mean what's your lowest, because that is the most annoying.
I don't use that phrase.
Freaking question.
I don't ask them what their highest is. I don't ask them what their lowest is. I just said, what do you have in mind? That is open-ended. You tell me.
That is the question that eBay needs to perma-block in eBay messaging. What's your lowest? Well, I don't know. Is there best offer on the item? guess the price it's listed for is my lowest, because Jesus, that gets annoying.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's laziness though. That's a lazy tactic. The reason why I use the phrasing that I use is that I didn't say highest, I didn't say lowest. I said, what do you have in mind? That leaves the ball in your court to come up with a number, and that'll be our starting point and maybe our ending point. By the way, if you come up with a great number that, hey, I'm completely happy with and it's fine for me, then our deal's done. There's no reason for me to beat you up anymore to try to squeeze a couple extra cents out of you.
Yeah, and it gives both sides kind of an idea, like,
Mhm.
are you seriously, like, are you trying to lowball, or are you a serious negotiator and a serious buyer? And on your behalf, you're looking at, okay, are they in my ballpark of what I'm willing to pay, or are we too far out of bounds? It's a simple thing, as a seller with that question, it opens you up to throw a number out if you're negotiable. And as a buyer, it gives you an idea if you can negotiate with this person. Are they looking at where you want to be at? But when you approach the situation with what's your lowest, well, there's not a damn seller out there that I am aware of or have ever heard of that
Not
is
a
going to
good
price something and then come right out and tell you, this is my bottom dollar. Like,
No, that's
because
just not smart.
the other side is because as a seller, you already know that if I tell you I have something at 200 and I tell you my lowest is 150, you're going to say, how about 120? Because that's just the way people think they can get over on folks. It's just stupid. So for all of you out there, if you are trying to go on eBay and buy, just stop typing the damn question.
Yeah.
There you go. Sage words from Brandon. Bobbles and ball cards and 540 flips. The man, it wasn't a hot take, but he will not stand for it. It won't work. But like in all
It's
seriousness,
just annoying.
it is, I have no doubt. But look, in all honesty, like I've never seen that work as a tactic. Like I don't understand the question, because you've put yourself, so here's the bottom line for me on this. You put yourself in a position where there's almost no place for the other person to go. You force them in, instead of, you've created this like binary yes or no. Whereas a good negotiation leaves you a little bit of gray area to move in a couple of different directions. If you leave people a couple different directions to move in, you probably got a better chance of maybe getting it closer to where you want it to be, as opposed to limiting them and just forcing them into like a yes or no. If you start off with that as like, what kind of an answer do you think I can give you? There's almost nothing that I can answer that would make any sense for me. And if somebody tries to pull that, I would literally say like, yeah, $1 lower. Like I'm not going anywhere. Like I'm not giving anything. By the way, my real answer would have been different. But if you're going to ask that question, then you're not going to get an answer that you're going to want. It's not a good. Don't do that to yourself. Give yourself latitude. Give yourself room for the other person to work with you, and then maybe you can find yourselves in some common ground, or maybe you can't. Maybe the answer is they're too high, and fine. I saved myself some time. I already know that we're not even close. May as well move on and go somewhere else. But anyway, so that's it. I think we've had ourselves a good discussion on a couple of these different topics. So thank you both for contributing to that. Thank you to everybody for the comments on the previous episodes, and we'll definitely continue forward. If you got any suggestions for any other topics or things you'd like us to touch on, I like the psychology side of it a little bit with the offering and all that. We were able to get into that a little bit at the end of this one, so that was good. And we had a little fun with the autograph topic. So if you got any thoughts on that, feel free to throw that in the comments section. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So for Brandon, Bobbles and Ball Cards and 540 Flips, you can check his contact information in the description. Eric Sanderson d'Or, you can go on his Instagram and tell him all about the lemons. And give him inscription suggestions and cards that are big enough to hold the full name. That'd be very exciting. Very exciting. We can have that. More videos coming up on the channel. Live streams on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we are at least 15% less mature than we are in this venue and in this scenario. Thank you again to AMG Collectibles and the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel for supporting the podcast, the channel, and the live stream. We appreciate you all. Catch you in the next one.